Welcome back to more FPL content. There is a quick turnaround for Gameweek 14 with a Tuesday deadline. Be sure not to miss that. And also stay tuned for all the FPL content for Gameweek 14. The best wildcard and team selection videos are headed your way. The same goes for UCL fantasy content for match day 6 with the best limitless and wildcard teams, team selection, and much more. In the recent deadline stream, we hit a new goal of 35 subscribers, so thank you very much for your support. We're looking to build towards new goals in 2025, but thank you very much for everything you've been doing in terms of sharing the video, commenting, engaging in the live chat, and in the next deadline stream, I'm looking to give 10 memberships, so if you do tune in for that and contribute to the live chat, you have a good chance of winning a membership for an entire month where you gain early access to my videos, amongst many other perks. Let's get straight into this video though, with the transfer tips, 11 players to buy, hold, sell and skip. On screen, you can see the most transferred in players. Bukayo Saka undoubtedly is a great transfer. I recommended him a couple of weeks ago when he was yellow flagged against Nottingham Forest after the international break, and he has delivered 31 points in 2 game weeks ever since. And there's going to be some differentials also picked out in the buy section of this video. Smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. If you enjoy my content, our aim will be to get this to the 200 likes and to also keep on pushing towards new goals across all social media platforms like my Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM. You can follow me with the links in the description below. The same goes for the Discord server. It's a great community to be a part of for FPL, UCL Fantasy, and even Euros and World Cup when they come along. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. The first purchase I'm going to recommend is Jarrod Bowen, who is a massive differential at this moment in time, and another player I'd consider is Kudus, who has now served his 5-game suspension after that red card against Tottenham Hotspur, and he could be a great acquisition against Leicester City away. The only downside to this fixture is the fact that the Foxes have appointed a new manager in Ruud van Nistelrooy, and we could see a manager bounce, but I think West Ham can still score some goals in this game, and the likes of Bowen and Kudus will be by far the best West Ham assets in the outfield positions. Wan-Bissaka is in decent goal-scoring form, with goals in back-to-back games against Newcastle and Arsenal, and Fabianski in goal is by far the best budget goalkeeper, although some of you might point towards Forster, who only cost 4.3 million. Jarrod Bowen has excellent fixtures for the next 5 game weeks, after it gets a bit tough for the Hammers, but as a short to medium-term punt, I think Jarrod Bowen can be a great asset for your FPL teams. With 3 goals and 4 assists this season, that's 59 FPL points. Nothing crazy or spectacular, but Bowen is very consistent, and in terms of goal-scoring wingers, he is one of the very best in the Premier League. 27 key passes is definitely the standout statistics in terms of underlying numbers. Apart from that, 5 big chance credit is okay, 4 big chances. None of this is going to rival the likes of Palmer or Saka, but in terms of midfielders at 7.4 million and below, I think Bowen could be one of the best Mbeumo replacements in Gameweek 14. You have to give Nicholas Jackson credit. He has had a great start to this season with 8 goals and 4 assists, and he also ended the last campaign very strongly. He was in my FPL team for some double game weeks, and I've actually got fond memories of owning Nicholas Jackson, which might not be the case for everybody watching. Only one difficult game on paper over the next couple of game weeks, but Jackson actually started his goal-scoring form last season against Tottenham Hotspur with a hat-trick, and that kind of caused the downfall of Tottenham in the process. But I think Jackson, despite having 21.4% ownership, is going under the radar because he's on 4 yellow cards. This is a massive risk, and I've been talking about this for several weeks now, but with Isak potentially injured, if I'm buying a forward this week, it would be Jackson against Southampton away. There is the possibility of rotation over the coming weeks for Chelsea assets, but I think mainly they'll play the strongest 11 in the Premier League and go for their B team in the Europa Conference League and Carabao Cup at times. I think Jackson is probably the best forward in the game right now. I think Cunha and Joao Pedro will give him a run for his money, and Ollie Watkins is still a very decent asset, but Jackson has great long-term fixtures until the new year essentially, and he's been very consistent for the Blues, leading the front line, and I don't think there's much risk of Nkuku stealing too many minutes or starts from the Senegalese forward. 78 FPL points is very impressive. A bit disappointing for him not to get any bonus points in that 3-0 win against Aston Villa, but I think normally Jackson will get 1 or 2 bonus points when he does get on the score sheet. His XG is 6.48, and all the underlying stats for Jackson are very impressive. So I think he's a buy, and arguably a great captaincy shout against Southampton away. Another forward that I'd highly recommend is Evanilson, especially if you're in the market for a budget striker, or maybe you're in the mood for a massive differential. Evanilson only has 2.1% ownership, and that price tag offers excellent value at 6 million. He's by far the best Bournemouth asset alongside Semenyo. I wouldn't really consider Kluivert over Evanilson, despite the fact they play in different positions. And you've got the next 4 game weeks, which aren't the greatest on paper, facing Tottenham and Man United. But I think Bournemouth can get a result in one of those games, and Evanilson could walk away with some goal contributions. He has done in the past against Man City and Arsenal, and that's 4 goals and 4 assists this season, with a hat-trick of assists by winning every single penalty that Bournemouth were awarded this weekend, and Kluivert scored a hat-trick of penalties. A few Premier League records were broken as well. Now, Evanilson has very good underlying numbers with an XGI figure of 5.64. I do think the assists aren't really going to be there, despite the 4 assists he already has. He's going to get more goals, I think, generally speaking. We'll probably see more of a disparity between goals and assists. That's kind of my take on it, looking at the numbers, but not everything is about stats, and football is played on the football pitch. But I do like Evanilson. He's a decent striker who led the line well for Porto last season, and I do prefer João Pedro and Cunha, not to mention Nicholas Jackson and Isak if he's fit. But I think Evanilson could even enter the top 5 forwards in FPL over the next 6 game weeks. It's extremely rare for me to discuss goalkeepers in a Transfits podcast, let alone recommend them as a purchase, but Robert Sanchez has excellent fixtures until January, and I think Chelsea could go on a massive run and maybe sneak themselves into a title conversation. He actually got a decent number of points against Aston Villa, courtesy of 3 saves, a clean sheet, and a very good performance by Chelsea, and he's also made a penalty save so far this season, so that's 52 points, one of the highest scoring goalkeepers in FPL so far, rivaling the likes of Onana, and the other options I'd also consider would be Raya and Verbruggen. Also, when Alisson is back from injury, that would kind of assemble the top 5 goalkeepers in FPL. But if I'm buying a goalkeeper at this moment in time, it would be Robert Sanchez, facing a Southampton side without Dibbling and other key assets, especially in those attacking areas, and I think Chelsea could really put them to the sword in Game Week 14. Then it's Tottenham away, and even if Chelsea get a result there, I don't think they'll keep a clean sheet, but I think Chelsea can surprise people, and they're currently favourites to finish 4th behind the big 3 of Arsenal, Liverpool and Manchester City, and who knows, Chelsea could even finish above 1 or 2 of those teams, especially Manchester City at this moment in time. I think the Spaniard is by far the best way of covering Chelsea defensively. You do have Colwell at 4.5 million, who would be next in line, and it was Cucurella who got the bonus points against Aston Villa. But Robert Sanchez will offer you a very reliable goalkeeper in terms of FPL output, great long-term fixtures, the occasional bonus point, and many saves. So I think Robert Sanchez is a great goalkeeper to buy in FPL. We are now onto the hold section, and it's difficult with Isak. I think it's very close between him being a hold or a sell, but in most scenarios, I try to hold the Swedish international. The injury doesn't seem serious, but he was substituted off around 21 minutes against Crystal Palace. He tried to play on, but couldn't continue. Now, local reports indicate that Isak didn't even seek immediate dressing room treatment after coming off, and Eddie Howe said the following in his press conference: "I don't know at this moment in time. It looks like he's got a knock. I don't think it's a muscle problem, which is good news for us. Hopefully, he can recover quickly." I personally think Isak will be available for Game Week 14 or 15, and I think if I had to pin it down to one specific game week, I think it'll be Brentford away in Game Week 15, and he might miss the Liverpool clash, but Newcastle will be desperate to have the Swedish striker leading the line for them, because Callum Wilson was subbed on around 75 minutes. I don't think he's quite ready to start just yet, and the alternative would be starting Anthony Gordon up front and maybe Harvey Barnes on the other side, and maybe go for someone like Jacob Murphy. That wouldn't be ideal, so I think Isak will probably do everything possible to face Liverpool at home. Isak's had a kind of up and down season. He was in great form recently, but injuries always halt his momentum. He's got very good underlying stats, 26 shots inside the box, also a great number of big chances with 10, and he's only played 11 games, and some of them were actually like 45 minutes against Wolves, for example, and he hasn't always played the full 90. I think Isak is still one of the best forwards in FPL, especially after the Liverpool game, where I think Newcastle will probably lose, but they could still cause an upset as they've got a decent team and some very good players like Bruno Guimaraes and Isak himself. They've also got the likes of Brentford, Leicester and Ipswich Town over the next 4, and Isak could deliver some really big returns in those matches. If I'm buying a striker right now, it would be Nicholas Jackson, despite the suspension risk, but Isak is worth holding on to in many scenarios. Next up is Antoine Semenyo, who is a hold in my opinion. I wouldn't be necessarily looking to invest in him right now, and Evanilson might be the better Bournemouth asset in terms of covering their attack, but Semenyo is still a decent choice at 5.7 million, and the best number you can really pick about Semenyo is the number of shots. 52 is insane for a 5.7 million midfielder, but a lot of them are blocked, to be fair, and very ambitious efforts from outside the box. But his ownership is 6.8%, 4 goals and 1 assist this season is decent, but ever since I discussed selling him around Game Week 8 or 9, he delivered 10 points against Man City, but that's about it really. It's been Evanilson stealing the show with very consistent returns. Kluivert got a hat-trick of penalties over the weekend, and he scored more points than Semenyo this season, and you might point towards him if you're looking to get a budget midfielder right now, but I still think Semenyo would be above Kluivert in the pecking order, and you're not going to get a hat-trick of penalties ever again, really. That's going to be a very rare occurrence throughout Premier League history. I think Semenyo, though, is worth holding on to. I don't think there's much difference between him, Rodgers and Smith Rowe at this moment in time. Buonanotte is also a decent differential midfielder, especially when Leicester City's fixtures pick up for the better, but I think Semenyo is a hold. What more can we say about Gabriel? He is the highest scoring centre-back across Europe's top 5 leagues since he joined Arsenal, and he scored against Sporting in midweek. He's done it again in the London Stadium. That's 3 times he's done it away from home against West Ham. 3 goals and 1 assist in the Premier League this season, and 6 big chances, which is insane for a centre-back. His ownership is 24.7%, and if it wasn't for this yellow flag and this persistent injury that he's picking up, he was subbed off against Liverpool back in Game Week 9, against Sporting, and now at halftime against West Ham, that is a cause of concern, but I think Gabriel is worth investment. So after this United game, Gabriel turns into a buy, assuming he's fit, and I do believe he will be available against Manchester United in the first place, but the report we got from Mikel Arteta was the following straight after the 5-2 victory against West Ham. It was related to the previous injury that he had in Lisbon, and obviously he did great to be part of that, but with that result and with the niggle that he's feeling, we decided to take him off. I personally think Gabriel will be available because otherwise the drop-off is massive. Even if you go for Timber at centre-back, a lot of players are missing, like Ben White, who would be able to maybe help cover for Gabriel in certain games. But this is a massive match against Manchester United, who just won 4-0. They'll be without Kobbie Mainoo and Lisandro Martinez due to suspension, and Gabriel could be feasting against any team really from set pieces, and Arsenal's deliveries from Saka and Declan Rice are simply phenomenal. I think Gabriel is the best defender in FPL right now, even over the likes of Virgil van Dijk, but that is definitely a debate, and they're both right up there. You can certainly make a case either way. I would hold on to Gabriel for now, and if he's available, he turns into a buy from Game Week 15 onwards. Luis Diaz provided an assist in FPL against Manchester City by winning the penalty, and ever since Game Week 5, he's only got 2 assists, and they came against Arsenal and Manchester City, but I'd only advocate holding on to Luis Diaz if he plays up front, because in that role, he plays even better football. He's so dangerous and dynamic. He scored a hat-trick against Bayer Leverkusen in that position a couple of weeks ago, but if that's not the case, I think Diaz is a very easy sell, and I'd rather go to the likes of Jarrod Bowen and Mitoma and other options I've discussed in recent videos, not just the transfer tips, but also my deadline streams, team selections, and best wildcard squads. Diaz has 5 goals and 3 assists this season. He was actually outperforming Salah in the first 5 game weeks of this campaign, but there has been such a huge difference ever since. Diaz has 8 big chances so far this season, and most of them came in the first 5 matches. 71 FPL points is a very good return, but it just hasn't been good enough for a couple of months now. I think Diaz is a sell, but keep an eye out for his position, because if he plays up front very often, he could easily turn into a buy or a hold very soon. As reported during the FPL deadline stream recently, Konate will miss 5 to 6 weeks, which could mean up to 7-8 Premier League matches where Konate is absent. He is a very easy sell, and in a lot of cases, he would be a priority sell over midfielder or forward transfers even, because at least in some of those scenarios, those players will actually be available and get you some FPL points over the coming weeks. And you've got a lot of value around a similar price. You can go for Gabriel or Timber or Virgil van Dijk if you still want to go for the Liverpool defence, and also Joe Gomez, a very cheap entry point, and you save 0.5 million by selling Konate. And Liverpool have some good long-term fixtures, but over the next 4, it's Newcastle and Tottenham away from home, where they could slip up or at least concede some goals. But I have to say, Liverpool right now look imperious. They've only dropped points in 2 matches in the Premier League so far this season. They're flying in the Champions League too, winning 100% of their games there, also progressing in the Carabao Cup, only conceding 8 goals and keeping a clean sheet against Manchester City. So they are flying right now, and even the injury to Konate won't really drop them too much in my opinion. I think Joe Gomez can do a job for the next couple of weeks, and I'd probably invest in him if you want that Liverpool defensive coverage, and I'll discuss this in future videos like the best wildcard team. So Konate is a very easy sell, and once he's back from that injury, he could definitely turn into a buy once again. Back in Gameweek 11, Nottingham Forest started this kind of difficult run, but they had that Ipswich Town at home fixture in Gameweek 13 where Aina delivered 8 points, and I recommended holding Sells, Chris Wood and Aina for that particular match, but benched them if possible against the likes of Newcastle and Arsenal. And now they face Man City away, Man United, Aston Villa and Brentford. I don't think the fixtures are terrible if you really break them down, considering Man City's form, United do leak chances, and the likes of Villa and Brentford will always give you opportunities. But I do think Aina and Sells would be sells in my opinion, and you could make a case for keeping Chris Wood in those matches, but I don't see many clean sheets for Nottingham Forest beyond Gameweek 13, where I always kind of back them to keep that clean sheet, but not necessarily so for the next couple of weeks. Aina was in fact the only player to rise in price on Saturday night, but he's going to soon go down in my opinion. I think Forest will drop points as they did against Newcastle and Arsenal, conceding 6 goals in those 2 matches, and I don't think Aina will deliver many returns in the next few weeks. I could be really wrong about this, and Forest could still battle on in a very strong position in the Premier League. They've had a very good defence so far, only bettered by Liverpool, but I don't think Aina will return very often in the next month or two, and I'd wait until Nottingham Forest's fixtures turn for the better. And in the meantime, you can go to Colwill, a Brighton defender, and all those options discussed in my recent wildcard videos. The upcoming podcast as well is definitely worth keeping an eye on, but I think Aina is a sell. The final player covered today will be the only skip of this video in Fraser Forster. If you are looking for a backup goalkeeper, I don't think Forster is a terrible option, and he's quite cheap. He might offer you a few clean sheets here and there. All the stats you see on the left, except for FPL points, are about the Europa League stats for Forster, whilst he started in those 3 games, only keeping 1 clean sheet, making 13 saves, and conceding 5 goals in the process. Against Fulham in that 1-1 draw, he made 5 saves and got 3 FPL points, which isn't too shabby. And I do think if you are in the market for a backup goalkeeper, I mean, you don't really have too many options. It's Fabianski or Forster. I'd personally go for Fabianski, especially with West Ham's fixtures being better over the next 5 game weeks, and you do save a bit of money as well. But Forster isn't terrible. I just don't think it's worth a transfer, especially in this very busy period coming up. And you want to focus your transfers in the outfield positions, particularly in the midfield and forward line. That concludes the transfer tips for Gameweek 14 in FPL. There's such a quick turnaround between deadlines. We've got another one on Tuesday. Be sure not to miss that. Also on Saturday, we've got another FPL deadline, then UCL Fantasy. So it's going to be a very busy period, especially over Christmas. But the plan is to get all the usual content out for you for FPL and UCL Fantasy. On screen, you can see the most transferred out players. Mbeumo has terrible fixtures over the next 8 game weeks, but some of them might not be too shabby for an attacker. And I did discuss holding Mbeumo last week. I haven't really changed my mind, but you could certainly make a case for selling Mbeumo to a Jarrod Bowen or the other midfielders discussed very recently. And if you've got the funds and Mbeumo's your only kind of route to Saka, Salah and Palmer, then of course I'd 100% recommend it. But a lot depends on context and your team situations. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. And thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Our aim is to get this video to 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards new goals like 31,000 subscribers. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks, the Discord server, FPL League, Draft Hound, as well as Spotify. Leave a 5-star review on my podcast and follow me on Spotify. It goes a long way to support my channel. I wish you all the best of luck for Gameweek 14 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.